What's up, everybody? Welcome back to VectorSigma.info. Today I am here with you for a special occasion. Of course, I'm doing a deck tech today. Before we get to the deck tech, I just want to remind everybody that this weekend, November 6th, I'll be doing a 24-hour stream for Extra Life. And during that time, I will be holding the November Extra Life Titan 1 event, which is also the first event that ATP 5 is legal. Pretty cool. There's been lots of different testing going on and lots of different decks for people are playing. Lots of new ATP 5 characters getting a lot of love, but this deck isn't necessarily ATP 5 characters, but it's ATP 5 battle cards, an ATP 5 stratagem, and then an oldie but goodie in a Wave 3 Major Shockwave. So of course, if you can't play, but you want to help and you want to get a part of the raffle, because we are holding that big raffle, as you can see, some of this stuff is all getting put on there into the raffle. Of course, you can just set up my Extra Life page and donate. I just had another big donation. Shout out to my friend Jack Frosty over in my World of Warcraft guild. Really pumped to get that one. But plenty of time left, plenty of days before we get to that event. And all day long, I'll be doing that 24-hour stream. I'll be doing some different raffles for Transformers, for World of Warcraft, maybe some other stuff along the way. We'll see what other things I can come up with. But with that, Major Shockwave. Man, this guy is an oldie but goodie, right? He's been around since Wave 3. He's seen some really good finishes in a lot of different events. You know, he's won 2 PBT events. He top forward the Energon Invitational. There was a top 8, I believe, of the PPG championships as well. This guy has been around for a long time. He's been one of the more unique characters in the game, allowing you to constantly look at the top card of your deck and play cards. He's just an all-around, very interesting card. And the coolest thing about Shockwave, what I've always loved, is that this is like a designer's dream character, because no matter what, every single set that you would make after this character, there's always a way to buff this, whether it be through leader, whether it be through specialist, whether it be through spaceships, whether it be through Decepticon cards or secret actions. This guy gives you so many ways to constantly make him better. And I believe ATP 5 did a lot of things to make this character better and make him a real threat to the metagame. This card is, I don't think this is going to be like a one-off type thing. I do think this character has a lot of really good things going forward with it in the current metagame. And that's why I wanted to do a deck tech for this guy, because I just wanted to show, once again, even though we make new characters and we make new sets, a lot of times when we make new battle cards, it really does affect older characters in the game, and we do our best in design to do that. And I think Major Shockwave in this particular set got a lot of fun new cards. Let's get into the deck list. And nope, I messed that one up. Where are we at? Bam, here we are. Get rid of Shockwave, get into it. So this is it. Tumbling Shockwave is what I've named this deck. Anyone that knows, I like to have somewhat creative names for my deck list, and I thought Tumbling Shockwave was perfect because we are bringing Flame War with her new stratagem, Rough and Tumble, and Night Racer. Now, what does Rough and Tumble do for those of you that may not know or need a quick reminder? Rough and Tumble. If you begin the game with no Autobots in your starting team, your Flame War veteran Decepticon begins the game in bot mode. So that's number 1. So effectively, you get a free flip if you're not playing any Autobots in your team. Then, when one of your Decepticons attacks, if you have Flame War veteran Decepticon on your team, you flip at least blue, the attacker gets +1 attack until end of turn. Basically, what this allows you to do is a situational +1 attack to your characters. Nothing crazy special, nothing super big to really be weary about, but it is a nice little buff that you can add to your attacks, especially in certain deck lists. For example, this one has 33 blue icons. So there's a very good chance that on your attacks you're going to hit blue. I think even here, as you can see with Zero Bold, there's a 33% chance that when you flip cards, it'll be blue. So, I mean, third of the time is pretty good. I can't really complain about that. And of course, what this does also is you get to start with your Flame War in bot mode, which is huge because it just means from turn 0, effectively, even if you go second, she's already in bot mode. She's already in that mode that you want her to be, which gives your entire team tough 1. Also, this gives her a +1 health. Since she's effectively a 6-star character now, like going up to 11 health is hitting a break point in the game that's important. So the character is a little more survivability to it is the best way I can put it. But yeah, so that's the lineup we're going with. And then Night Racer is another one. Since we're playing, how many we have here? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 secret actions. We can play our secret actions off the top of the deck because of Shockwave. That means with Night Racer and Flame War, you can effectively have tough 2 pretty fairly often, definitely on turns when you want it. So like any of those turns where your Shockwave is going to be, open for an attack, having a secret down is going to give you the protection from the secret, but it's also going to give you an additional tough 1 from Night Racer and the tough 1 from Flame War. It is a lot to get through to this big guy, which is the big deal, why I think this character is going to see a lot of love in this particular Titan 1 metagame, because he is a 17 health character. He's a big boy. Like, we're not talking about, a small character. We're talking about 17 3 defense or 17 2 defense, and the ability to play secret actions or Decepticon cards off the top of your deck. This guy has a lot. he's a big boy, real big boy. So it's been a while since we've really seen him, but it's things like this that you'll start to see this theme of the deck that really takes off and really makes it interesting. So he's a Shockwave, right? So let's talk about the cards we can play off the top of the deck. So we have 10 secret actions that we just covered, but we're going to go over them one more time. Backfire, one Backfire, 1 Sabotage Armaments, 2 Stable Covers, 2 End Hostilities, 2 Despite Any Difficulties, and 2 Downfall Protocols. So you might look at that and be like, oh, why are you so spread out? Why don't, maybe you're missing one? Where's the Infiltrate? Things like that. All good questions, right? But really, the reason why you're doing it this way is because since you get to play off the top, since you get to see him with so many cards, and with the addition of a new card called Knack, which is an ATP 5 battle card, that it's a black, green. It's a green leader, green specialist, conditional pips, and it reveals the top card of your deck, and then you may play a card from your scrap pile that has at least 1 battle icon in common with the battle icon revealed this way. So with having the 33 blue cards and the 8 black pip cards, we can hit Downfall Protocol, we can hit Despite Any Difficulty, we can hit Stable Cover, and then we can hit any of the blues. Obviously, they're all blue except for Stable Cover. So what that does is we want to be spread out. We want to play more conditional secret actions. Honestly, you could be playing even more than this, I think. I think you could easily be playing 12 or 13 secret actions if you want to fit withdrawal protocols in here, if you wanted to fit the Infiltrate, if you wanted to fit, really whatever you would want. As long as it has a pip that is either blue or black, I think it'll fit really well into this option. So there are definitely other things that you could choose from and go with that. I mean, you could also just, go further and play a 3 of the End Hostilities or a 3 of Despite Any Difficulties. I mean, with the tough 2 in this deck, I mean, yeah, you're mostly blue deck, but you do have situational greens, blacks, and oranges. Your Despite Any Difficulty is still going to probably be good enough to, A, it gives you the tough 1 for Night Racer, B, it gives you whatever the blue pips you're going to get plus whatever external pips. It's still a very good card in this deck. But yeah, that's the reason why we're spread out in those, because we want, a Backfire in some games can be probably the greatest thing ever, because sometimes the best defense is a good offense, and if your opponent is just suiting up a character and trying to Voltron their way to victory, and you're just like, set Backfire, get tough 2 because of Flame War and Night Racer, and then bolt your guy, or Plasma Burst your guy, basically, that's going to be a big play. It's going to be a big swing play for you to very easily probably take care of characters or even KO characters before combat. That's a really strong card when utilized correctly, and the way this deck can play and particularly use it is very, very powerful, I think. So those are the 10 secret actions that you can play off the top, right? So that's 10 cards already that we can use effectively with Shockwave. Now, however, we have 10 more. So we have Reclaim, which is a Decepticon card. We have Magnetic Dysfunction Ray, which is a Decepticon card. And then we have Must Die Sometime, which is an ATP 5 battle card, which is also a Decepticon card. Then we have a Scoundrel's Blaster, 3 Gamma Rays, 2 Energon Maces, and 1 Electro Optical Visor. Gives us a total of 10 or 20 total cards that we can play off the top of our deck. So right now our deck is a 40-card deck. That's half your deck. So basically almost every time you look at your library, your deck, your battle deck, you're going to see a top card that you probably can play most of the time, which is a big deal because as I said on an episode one of the gameplay videos that I've said lately, and I also think I said it in the protocols episode, where it's very important in this game that if you're going to be building a deck that isn't going to be totally utilizing reverse engineering and knacks and stuff like that, you need to find some other way to facilitate your gameplay. Shockwave is doing all of those things. So you get the reverse engineering, you get the knacks, and then you also get the ability to just play cards straight off the top of your deck. You just always have an extension of everything. You have an extension of the scrap pile, you have an extension of your battle deck from the top of card of your deck, and then you have your hand as well. So you are very, very easily utilizing so many resources in the game with this character right now that it's outstanding. It is very, very powerful. This guy is a lot of fun when you really start looking through what he can do with him. And that's why I have it this way. With the 20 Decepticon cards or secret actions being half your deck, it just gives you so much more opportunity cost. And that's a big deal. And I think that's going to be a lot of fun as you start playing games with this deck and as you start seeing what Shockwave is really capable of. So let's round out exactly what all this is now. So we have 3 Bigger They Ares. We have 1 Espionage, 1 Reclaim, 2 Unconventional Flying Objects, 1 Belligerence, 1 Mag Ray, 1 Catch-Off Guard, 1 Knack, 1 Must Die Sometimes, and 1 Reverse Engineering. You're probably thinking to yourself, man, that's a lot of one-offs. Once again, this goes back to Knack. Knack and Shockwave himself, right? The idea that you can easily play, not all of these, but half of these cards, or almost half of these cards, just from the top of your deck, which means you always have that extra opportunity. And then you have Knack, which also hits, most of these cards from your scrap pile. So it's very easy for you to create a list with this many one-ofs. I mean, we're looking at what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So 15 one-ofs in a Shockwave deck. Anyone that knows me when I build decks, it's very common that when I'm building decks that play on this axis, Perceptor is another good example of this, where you can just see as many cards as possible. It's very easy to play on this axis and play a many one-ofs. And that's why even in this list, you only have 2 3-ofs. You have Guardian Shell, which is an ATP 5 armor, and then you have Gamma Disruptor Launcher, which honestly, I could make an argument that you only have to play 2 of these if you really wanted a slot, which is pretty crazy to think about, but it's actually it's not that difficult for you to get both of these on your Shockwave. But having a third is, of course, still very good. But I digress. Let's go back. So the Bigger They are easy. You have 2 5-drop characters. They attack up to many things. Whenever they attack up, you want to get the most out of them as possible. We don't have that many Black Pips in the deck. We're only at 8 Black Pips. So you're not really going to get to anything crazy Pierce numbers like you would see in a blue-black Ghost Starscream deck. But it's still a respectable way to get damage through your little guys. Bigger They Are plus Scoundrel's Blaster is just Pierce 6 against Autobots. Bigger They Are plus Energon X is the same thing against everything. And then, of course, Energon Mace is a newer card. It's mostly in here because it's a Decepticon card, but it's still a very playable card, and it's very live. And against certain decks, this card's going to be really, really good. So, getting to those extraordinary numbers are going to be really nice when you compare them together. But the Reclaim is the one of, and the Espionage. The Espionage is just, it's a white-green. It's probably very easy to decide not to play this Espionage. It's more or less of a extra layer of protection that if you really are looking for room again to manipulate this, it's very possible that you drop this Espionage and go for another white. We only have 2 white pips in the deck, which is kind of low, to be honest. And it would be something with the more playtesting I did, I would probably try and find a way to get more whites in the deck. So, which is why I would be hesitant to take Espionage out without a really good replacement for it. And I'm not certain what that replacement is right now. I do not think it's another reverse engineering, at least with this particular deck, because we only have 17 upgrades. And what I will say, little tip of the hat to reverse engineering, is that with Shockwave being an extension of your hand, that card on top of your deck, if it is an upgrade, you can play it off the reverse engineering, which is just another way to like utilize the top of your deck and this card, for example. Of course, it has to be a Decepticon weapon or armor or utility, which in that case, it's only the Gammas, the Energon, the Scoundrels, and the Electrovisor. So if any of those are on top of your deck, you can reverse engineering and play it from the top of your deck because the card does count as in your hand. So that's just a little thing. But the Espionage, once again, the Espionage and reverse engineering being the only two whites, it's really tough to kind of fit more or decide which is the best, I would say. But if you were looking for cards to cut, I think you'd be okay getting rid of Espionage. It's probably a little bit on the overkill when you look at the two unconventional flying objects also. And they're all kind of working towards that same goal. But for now, I'm keeping it because I want the white pip. Honestly, I'd like to even try to find another white pip to try and get to 3 or 4 white pips, but it was starting to get pretty difficult. The Reclaim is effectively just another way to get whatever you need back on top of your deck as at an upgrade standpoint. So this is another reason why you can probably get away with only playing 2 Gamma Disruptors if you really wanted to find more room somewhere. This would be a way to do it because you could just drop this, play the next other card that you want, and you still have a Reclaim that effectively gets you the ability to play both of these. You're going to have the knack to also play it. So you're going to have 2 different forms of ways to play this card. And that's why I really like the Reclaim. And obviously it has other situational uses as well. The unconventional flying objects are just the early game to play this card and to remove your opponent's resources from their hands so early in the game is very, very effective. It's the reason why the staying power of this deck lasts, because if you're just taking away your opponent's resources and you get an effective bold 2 or like tough 2 on almost every defense that's important, it's very hard for your opponent to get damage through you. So having this is a card that I think went away for a long time, but I think right now it's in a good position because you just want to accelerate that disruption in your opponent, and this is a very good way to do that. The one of Belligerence is just it's a security blanket in matches that you really need it. It's another card that, like, if you wanted to take this out and just sideboard them, you could. It wouldn't be too shocking to me to do that. I just like the ability of in any given game when you need to, when Shockwave finally gets suited up and he's 11-12 attack, this is just kill your guy, and that's I think it's still very good to have these types of cards in your deck. Magnetic Dysfunction Array. You're playing 3 Decepticons. It's a free 4 to 6 damage against Autobot decks. It's really hard to pass this card up, especially the fact that it's a Decepticon card also. It's also a black pip and an orange pip. You're not crazy into the knack situation there, but it's realistic that you could hit a black pip off your knack and then play another mag ray, so you can have games where all of a sudden you're just like deal 10 to 12 damage to my opponent's board with just Magnetic Dysfunction Array pretty easily with, like, once again, the ability to play it from your scrap pile, the ability to play it off the top of your deck. It's just a very strong card to have. It's too strong not to play this card, let's put it this way. It's actually so strong that you see that in this sideboard, which I wouldn't say is like a complete sideboard by any means, but I would still be willing to at least, at the minimum, play a second Mag Ray, and playing the third is probably correct. Any world where you're just going to go against Autobot decks, this card's going to be absolutely insane. Catch Off Guard is just a protection against any of the Jetfire lineups that might happen, or honestly just any of the decks. Like, it's just the value of playing this card is just good, so we're just playing it. Knack we already talked about. Well, Knack was all over the place. You have Shockwave as the leader and specialist. You have Flamore, who's a specialist. You will miss this with Night Racer. Honestly, there's an argument to be made that if you do not want to play Night Racer, or let's say you don't own a Night Racer, and maybe that's another thing, you could play Scourge. Realistically, you honestly could play Scourge in this deck if you really wanted to. It would change it up a little bit, and you would lose some of the tough and the extra defense, but you would be able to play probably more reverse engineerings and more knacks if you want the 3 specialist route. So it's definitely like an idea that you could consider if you're trying to think of something of a way to mess with this character lineup a little bit. I think playing Scourge might be a very interesting shot. Must die sometime. Anyone that watched the stream that me and Ziggy did the other night, this card is absolutely phenomenal against opposite faction legends. I mean, the card is just dirty. Every single time it was played, it dealt 3 damage. Well, it moved 3 damage. It healed your dudes each one, and then moved 3 damage to my Minimus. But it would also move it to Optimus Prime. It would move it to Rodimus Prime, like Alita 1. All these cards, they'll just move it right to them, and it's really powerful. It's a really, really powerful card. Does it need to be in the main deck? Maybe not. But if you listen to me on the protocols for testing, I said it was really effective that you play these cards in your main deck to get a use and see how powerful they can really be. So if you expect a more Autobot heavy legend metagame, playing one of these in your main deck is not going to hurt you by any means. And honestly, even if you're not, it's still a pretty good card. In general, there might be situations where getting rid of Sturdy is pretty important. So it's something to think about for sure if you still want to main deck this. But this is another card that if you didn't want to main deck it and you wanted to put on the board, I think you're okay doing that. I don't think you're going to lose too much off of it. But when you see this, having it game 1 against certain Autobot decks, it's going to be a really, really powerful card. Reverse engineering is, we've talked about it a bunch on the Protocols podcast and stuff like that. But this card's just good. It's really good in here if you have to spend a little bit more time suiting up other people. Like if you want to throw a Guardian Shell and a Flame War, but then you get to your Shockwave turn. When you get to your Shockwave turn, maybe you don't have your 2 weapons, or you don't have a weapon and an armor. This allows you to basically on your Shockwave attack turn to play a weapon and play a second weapon if you have it, or play a weapon and play a Guardian Shell or play a Reflector Cell. There's a lot of options that you get with this card, and it's really, really powerful for your Shockwave turns. And honestly, just in general, playing this once a game just to uptick your upgrade suite by 1, it's a really, really power play in the game. It separates the times that you don't, to be honest. The secret actions are pretty simple. I know the stable covers probably look really awkward, but honestly, the one thing that this deck loses to is just Pierce decks. For sure. If you go against a real heavy orange-black Pierce deck, all the tough in the world's not going to matter against those decks, so you need some type of protection. And I think that it's not even it's bad against any... it's not it's just a bad secret action to play, period, because you play it, and then you're still getting a +1 defense from it, and you're still getting the tough one from Night Racer, so it's still effectively a +2 on defense, and then the occasional removal of Pierce in random matchups. But really, against the focused Pierce decks, this card is just it is end hostilities against those decks. So it's effectively just playing 2 end hostilities against Pierces. And once again, you have the option to play this out of the scrap pile off the top of your deck. So finding it is not hard or difficult, and that's why I think it deserves room and has that spot in here. The rest of it is all pretty simple. Downfall Protocol is a new secret action. What's really cool about Downfall Protocol, and since it's right here, Reflector Cell, these are both really, really strong cards in this deck because the option of bouncing a card back to your opponent, it's normally just a halfway okay resource, but Shockwave is different, right? Because Shockwave gets to bounce something back to their hand, and the next turn you can make them scrap it with his effect. Very, very powerful, very strong. Once again, all of the tools that this deck has gotten over the last couple of ATP sets is really starting to come through here. The knack and the reverse engineering kind of letting you play extra cards, the Downfall Protocol and the Reflector Cell letting you bounce things back to your opponent's hand and then scrap them on the next turn, or even the same turn with Reflector Cell. All very, very strong cards. And definitely, it's just all the synergy going towards the same direction with this character. Let's get in the upgrades. So we have Energon Axe, a Scoundrel's Blaster, 3 Gamma Disruptor Launchers, 2 Energon Mace, and 2 Handheld Blasters. Why the 2 Handheld Blasters? Well, if I'm being honest, I wanted to keep my blue count high. However, if you're comfortable with not having 33 and going down to a 31, you could probably play other things in this card's place. And there's plenty of options to do so. You can go to a 3rd Reflector Cell. You can play another Energon Axe if you wanted to. I don't think you need to with the Scoundrel's Blasters and the Energon Maces. I'm honestly not even convinced that you even need the Energon Axe, but it's more of if they happen to kind of get rid of your Gamma Launchers, the Energon Axe is the perfect, I'll just play this instead upgrade that you can kind of just hangs out in your hand for most of the game. or it has some early use on your other characters as well, of course. But this weapon suite is pretty straightforward with the six upgrades you can put at the top of your deck is very good. It's almost ensuring that most games you're going to have 1 to 2 upgrades on characters, which is what you need to do to push damage. So that's very, very good. Like I said, the handheld blasters very easily could be changed to something else. And I think that's honestly a pretty open idea of what you want to do. There are plenty of like other random armors and utilities that you could mess around with and play, and maybe you're more comfortable than just like playing the double blues to play the double blues, because they're by far the worst card in this deck, right? Like you look at this deck and up and down with all the 1-ofs and all the 2-ofs and all this particular play spots there are, Handheld Blaster is the worst card in this deck by far. Like the only time it's good is if you flip it on defense, and that's it. Other than that, the card is just not good. It doesn't even fit the scheme. Nothing works with it. So you could very, very easily just find some other way to play other cards, and I wouldn't even bat an eye at it. I'd be like, yep, that makes sense. Let's go to the armor. We have Electro-Optical Visor, Adamantium Frame, which is another wave ATP 5 battle card, and then 3 Guardian Shell, which is an ATP 5 battle card. This is an armor that you can play off the top, which is just good. You have 3 Decepticons. If you're playing against Autobot decks with Autobot cards are going to be even more value. It's just another way to pick apart their hand, another way to see their hand, see what's going on. Just the ability to see your opponent's hand. I should have mentioned this with Espionage as well. It makes it easier to play certain secret actions as well, because you're going to know your opponent's plan throughout the course of the game. So a card like Visor or Espionage also are accomplishing that goal, so making it easier for your route of defense. So that's another little uptick here, along with being the Decepticon card. Adamantium Frame, I don't know about you guys, but having a Reflector Cell to give my Shockwave a plus defense and either be 3 or 4 defense, and then having Sturdy on that character with 17 health, that's pretty good. Not to mention with Tough 1 or Tough 2, there are games where like your opponent's going to attack with like a grenade launcher and something else, and your Shockwave's going to take like 6 damage, and he's just going to be like, yeah, cool. Like I have infinite defense and Sturdy and all these things. Like this card is just really, really powerful. Once again, it's just another great battle card to add to this suite. However, it's another one that I could see getting cut. I am very much testing out ATP 5 battle cards in this deck, and it being an orange pip is not necessary to the strategy of this deck, to where I could see it coming out and just being like a Bashing Shield, or being like an Absorption Core, or a Hollow Mounted Projector. Like any one of those I could see, but I didn't just want a straight green icon. I really wanted another orange in here, because like when in doubt, if I want to knack and I hit an orange and there's a belligerence in my scrap, that's not the worst thing. It's not the worst thing. The other option would be a Bashing Shield. I think if you didn't want to play this card, I would still play it at the minimum Bashing Shield. If you're not going to want to play the Bashing Shield, then I would play a Sparring Gear here. All in all, I would want to stay at 5 armors, and I would keep this in some form or another in armor. The Guardian Shells are probably the MVP of the armor set. This card is the most anti-Bashing Shield card in existence. It's simple, it's straightforward. When you play it, you draw a card, you just get to replace it, and then if they get rid of it, you get to heal. Great. Card's just good. Once again, just playing this on Shockwave, draw your card, now your Shockwave has 3 or 4 base defense. That's insanity. Finish it out, energy packs and reflector cells. So the energy pack's the duh, going to 21 health in your Shockwave that, has whatever armor in its slot is very good. It's just another little way to spread apart the game to prevent you from being like a one-shot from a belligerence and things like that. It's always good to have that type of option. The reflector cells, once again, I kind of covered them earlier. They're just good in general. They give you the +1 defense. They give you the ability to bounce something back to your opponent's hand and then scrap it away from them with the Shockwave effect. All good things. All good synergy. If you're looking for cards and going, man, I can't believe you're not playing that, one of the cards that always comes to mind for me is Gyroblaster. Gyroblaster is a phenomenal Shockwave card. However, I just don't want any blanks in this deck. I'm not saying that you can't play them. I'm not saying that they're not right, they're wrong, incorrect, none of that. I'm saying for this version that I wanted to play, I felt comfortable getting my Shockwave to like 5 or 6 defense in certain modes with the tough, and being I'm okay with that. I'm comfortable with where my character will be to where I don't need to use a Gyroblaster, and I would get a blue or an orange pip out of doing so. So I think those are the things that I would look. But if, like I said, if you wanted to cut a Gamma Ray, if you wanted to cut Adamantine Frame, if you wanted to go down on the Espionage, if you wanted to do those things and you were looking for room, then maybe those are the cards that you would look at first to play the Gyroblasters. But I think the way that the armors and the utilities now with the Guardian Shells and the Reflector Cells, I think they just do enough that you're not concerned with Gyroblaster anymore. And I think that's where I would be. But once again, if you're more comfortable with the Gyroblasters, play the Gyroblasters. If you want to try something new, try these new blue armors and utilities, because they are very powerful, they are very strong, and they're very on theme. All in all, the sideboard is there. I have Soundwave, which I think is a duh regardless. Obviously, you would get all his bots as well. Then I'm just rounding it out with a Bashing Shield, and energy packs. I want my other Sab Arms, I want my other End Hostilities, I want to reflect damage. And then you'll see that I have the 2 Mag Rays and the 2 Show of Masteries. There's not a Belligerence in there currently, which I think there should be. There should be at least a second Belligerence, I would say. So you would mix this up a little bit depending on where you ended up. But the reason why I went the 2 Show of Masteries, because Show of Mastery is a Decepticon card, so it's another card that you can play off top. I think if you're going to go to 2 tall, most of the times you're going to 2 tall is to be more aggressive in certain matchups. So slanting your deck more orange to having the Mag Rays and having the Show of Masteries are just more aggressive cards you can play off the top of your deck. So it just extends your hand and makes you a little bit more aggressive when you want to be aggressive, because that's, like I said, that's most of the time why you want to go to 2 tall, is to try and take an aggressive stance in that matchup. So I think that's why I would play Show of Masteries and I would play the Mag Rays in those matchups, because I think they're going to be really powerful for you. All in all, the sideboard is 100% up for debate. I think that's a good starting point, but if you have time and you decide you want to play this deck for the Extra Life event coming up, or you want to play it in the monthly, I would definitely play some games with this and get a little feel for it, and then find out all right, maybe I don't want an Absorption Core or the Reflector, the Reflect Damage. Maybe maybe I don't need a second energy pack, things like that. And you can definitely facilitate this with other options. Maybe you want a second Must Die sometime. That's a card that I would definitely be thinking about. It's possible that you want it more espionages, things like that. There's definitely cards in here that you maybe you want to go up, maybe you want to have the 3rd Handheld Blaster in the sideboard just in case for the games that you really wanted against the more natural orange decks, things like that. I think that's the best part. And of course, the last thing is with all the one-ofs. There's obviously cards in here that are toolbox cards that against certain matchups you're gonna find all right, I'm not good against this, I'm not good against that. Well, that's the easiest way to sideboard. This is a perfect deck for sideboarding, because you're gonna know when you play the games what cards are bad in the matchup, and you don't have to go through your deck and thinking oh my god, I need this, I need that, I don't know what I want to take in, I want to put out. You're gonna know against an orange deck that doesn't have Pierce, well, Stable Cover's the worst card in the deck, so you're gonna take them out. It's things like that. It's just so simple. I'm just not going to do that. It's just not very good. Same thing, with the Mag Rays. If you're just going against a Decepticon team, I'll just get rid of Mag Ray. All right, well, this is the easiest sideboard ever. See you later, Mag Ray. I'll just play another card. And that's it's another tip in the direction of this is a very good deck to start with. It's a good shell. I think it's a very strong shell. There was a gameplay on it that hopefully I can get on the channel in the coming days as well. But I wanted to get the deck tech out there to get people seeing the deck, maybe playing the deck and enjoying the deck. I didn't play it on stream. I played against it, and I can tell you that it was pretty frustrating to play against it. The games were close, and maybe I could have done something differently here and there. But seeing the deck and seeing how powerful it was and seeing how good Must Die sometime is into the Autobot Legends, there's a lot of things going for this deck, and I'm actually really excited to see if Shockwave can make a return in the Titan 1 metagame. But for now, that is all. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll catch you next time. See you.